Good evening, everybody. What's up? Hope you guys are well on this Saturday. I had somebody in my comments point out that I keep saying I hope you're doing good, which is inappropriate. I hope you're doing well. And we've got one last video where we take a look at these defensive linemen. There were so many of them that caught my attention that I kind of had to split the video. Still talking about some of the mid-level guys. So this video, we're going to be mostly talking about more mid-level stuff. Some guys who would be, solid starters or really good depth on the defensive line. And then at the end, I'll throw in a couple super budget options if you want to pad out your bench with decent veterans. So, again, defensive linemen, we're looking for defensive ends in a 3-4 or a 3-tech and to a certain extent 5-techs in a 4-3. Basically, the guys who are they're not just block eaters, but they're also not just the playmakers. They're somewhere in the middle. So a couple more significant names that I want to parse through here because these guys have actually put together pretty decent careers over the last several years, and they're relatively young. First guy would be Zach Allen of the Arizona Cardinals. We're somewhat familiar with this guy. He's playing defensive line in a 3-4 over there in Arizona. He's got experience doing what we would need, and he's built on his success with each year he's been in the league. He's coming off a season where he had 5.5 sacks in 13 games, which was a big improvement over previous years. Probably his best season as a pro. Now, the hang-up would be he hasn't played a full season yet. He's missed at least a couple games in every season of his career, and that's not what you want to see. But at the same time, I think we have to keep in mind here that going forward in a 17-game season with only one bye week, there are not going to be that many linemen out there who play every game. There just aren't. So you kind of have to accept that you're going to have a lot of guys who end up missing a handful of games a year, and it is what it is. PFF really liked what he did in 2022. They gave him a good all-around grade as a pass rusher and a run stuffer, which is a big improvement over what he did previous years. 2021, when his numbers were still actually half decent, grade was way worse. So it seems like this guy's improving as a player in every way. He's only going to be 26 this year. And Spotrac estimates he's going to get somewhere around 2 years, $12.7 million. So you're looking at a little over $6 million a year. If this guy continues to even get a little bit better than he already is, he's definitely worth that. And I would be very excited, I think, to offer him a contract like this and get production like what I saw from him in 2022 when he was a good all-around defensive player. Another guy would be Kalen Saunders. This guy is in terms of weight, he's kind of on the opposite side of the spectrum. But Kalen Saunders, now the circumstances of him as a player are different. This is a guy who's played pretty much exclusively, to my knowledge, in a 4-3, and he's somebody who was kind of a non-factor, nobody really knew that much about Kalen Saunders until this year. This year, a contract year, he played every game but one, had 3.5 sacks, almost 50 tackles, kind of blew onto the scene here. Not that he was dominant or anything like that, but he was suddenly a player of import for a really good team. Not a really good defense maybe, but a really good team. And PFF gave him passable grades, nothing special, nothing over the top. But this is indicative of a relatively good player who maybe even has a little bit of room to get better. He's going to be turning 27 in a little bit here. He's a little bit of an odd fit for what we're talking about here because he's so big. But again, like I said in my previous video, sometimes you have to be willing to be creative. Sometimes you have to be willing to look at a player and say, well, he doesn't fit my exact mental image of a player at this position, but if I believe that he can do it, then he can do it. And hey, at this weight, I mean, if push comes to shove, you could almost put him at nose tackle and it would be okay. So maybe there's a little bit of versatility in there as well. Spotrac says 2 years, just shy of 13, call it 6.5. Now, I think this depends a little bit on what defense we're running. If we're going to the 4-3, then this is something that I'm at least willing to consider. But if we're sticking in the 3-4, then I'm not so interested. Again, with the way things are right now with the Seahawks on defense, not knowing what we're going to do, you kind of have to keep all your options open and then reduce on your options once you find out what the deal is on D. So, Kalen Saunders, if you could get him at this price, maybe if you go to a 4-3, but I'm not really feeling it if you stick in the 3-4. So, that's what I'll say about that. All right, now we've gone through basically all the guys who are going to cost a decent amount of money, right? These are the guys who are going to cost you at least I think they're all going to cost at least $4 million a year, but probably less than $7 million. But I do want to briefly touch on a couple guys who you could get for probably like $2.5 million if you're just trying to fill out your depth. So I usually like to give as many options as possible when I make these videos, so I want to have at least a couple bargain bin basement guys. First is Solomon Thomas, the infamous first-round bust, formerly a 49er, spent a year with the New York Jets after spending a year with the Raiders. Can't really seem to make much of anything work no matter where he goes. He actually had his probably most prolific statistical season in 2021 for the Raiders when he had 3.5 sacks. They still didn't keep him. He ended up going to New York, didn't really do much of anything, played in every game, but that's about all you can say for him. As you can see, like, he plays a pretty decent amount, and he just doesn't produce all that much. He should be producing way more given how much he plays. But he belongs in the league. And when you take a look at this, if you scroll all the way down here, and you got to scroll all the way down here to find a Solomon Thomas here, I believe, okay, maybe I've scrolled a little too far here, but yeah, he got $2.25 million from the Jets, and he didn't do much. So if he gets another contract, it's probably going to be in that vein again. It's probably going to be about 1 year, $2 million. 2 million, maybe $2.5 million. It's not going to be more, right? It's not going to be significantly more. He didn't do anything to earn it. So Solomon Thomas, you pick him up for like 1 year, $2 million. Yeah, sure. You need bodies. PFF doesn't like him either, by the way, just putting that out there in case you were trying to find the, silver lining here. It doesn't exist. No, this guy's not very good, but he's not terrible, I don't think. I don't think he's completely terrible. He's just kind of generically bad. Next guy would be Kerry Hyder, and this is a former Seahawk who I was actually kind of sad when he left. I liked him. I wanted him to stay. I thought he would be a good fit in our 3-4. He played okay in our 4-3 the previous year, so whatever defense I'm running, I'm kind of on board with this one. And he didn't do that much in Frisco this most recent year. He had 1 sack. He didn't play a ton. He started 1 game. He did play almost every game, but he didn't play that much in those games. So when you're talking about Kerry Hyder, it seems like you can very reasonably expect to get him cheap. You're probably looking at getting him for like $2 million, maybe $2.5 million, just like Solomon Thomas. But you're going to get a steady, fairly effective, but not over-the-top player. Now, he's had over-the-top seasons before. In 2016, he had 8 sacks. In 2020, he had 8.5. I don't think that's who he is, at least not anymore, and I'm not expecting that. But PFF thought he played moderately, passably well in 2022. And if you could get him for 1 year, $2 million, I say bring him back. I would be excited to bring him back as a end-of-the-bench player. And that's really all the guys. As you can see, it's a very long list of players I went through. There are definitely going to be some other guys I missed. But those are the defensive linemen that stand out to me. So let me know what you think. Did I miss anybody? Am I overrating anybody? Say it down below. That's how I see things. See you guys later. Hope to see you tomorrow when we will go into another position. Go Hawks.